place where real dialogue matters.
Make some noise for that sound, man.
It is time to take flight with Audio Airstrike.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Audio Airstrike. I'm Everett Hall-McNeill. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 136. And I have two special guests with me that I've called on for this special episode. For those of you who are celebrating the 4th of July, make sure you stay safe, have fun, but also, more importantly, stay safe because we still are in the middle of a pandemic and stuff is definitely different. With that being said, I have two guests on for this episode. The first guest I would like to introduce, he is the podcaster for the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Will is with us. Will Otero is with us. How you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. And we also have another guest. He is a podcaster in his own right and has used his platform All In to help out as much people, but also bring insight to a lot of different topics. Ladies and gentlemen, from All In with Rick Jordan. Rick Jordan is with us.
What's up, Audio Airstrike? How you doing, Will? I'm really grateful for you having me on today, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, man. First off, I want to thank you guys both for coming on the show. And I wanted to kind of just go ahead and go right into it. With everything that's currently going on and how we're feeling and the stuff that's kind of going on in our society, what does freedom mean to you currently right now? And feel free, whoever wants to talk first, to take it away. But that is literally the only question that I have for this particular episode. It's July 4th. What does freedom mean to you currently, even with the current state of the country right now?
Man, you're going deep right away. I love it. That's I could sum it up in one phrase, man. Freedom is choice. And that's real choice of the God you're going to worship, choice of what comes out of your mouth, choice of reporting if you're in the media, choice to get together with your family, with your loved ones. It goes back to really why our country was founded. And you mentioned something interesting about the state of the nation right now. And that's where I see a lot of those choices are kind of being taken away. You know, I've been actually filming a documentary, Liberty Lockdown, over the past couple of weeks, and I've interviewed several people. And probably there were two that actually made me break down and cry, man. And one of them was a pastor that I interviewed in Las Vegas, of all places, you know, a church pastor in Las Vegas. And the story he started talking about was somebody in his congregation who died from COVID-19. And that individual, you know, they were in their 60s. So yeah, they were in that at-risk group, you want to call them that. But they were in that hospital bed all alone. The pastor couldn't go see them. Not even her husband could go and visit her and hold her hand while she passed away. You know, the husband didn't have the choice to go be with his wife. The wife didn't have the choice to invite her husband or her pastor into that room just for her last moments of life, to even celebrate and relive the memories over those couple of days, man. So that's the struggle that I see. And there's a lot of validity to what's going on right now, you know, because the virus is obviously real. It's something that definitely affects the at-risk crowds. But that choice that we have always had for 200 and something years, this is the first time, especially in my lifetime, that I can remember, even looking back in the history I know prior to me being born, it's the first time that choice I feel is very much jeopardized.
That's interesting, man. I think, especially when you realize just how precious life is.
Oh, man, yeah.
When this is happening, because at first we were getting false information left and right. Well, it only affects the elderly.
Yeah.
Then kids started passing away from it. And then we realized, okay, it's affecting everybody. It's affecting everybody the same. And
Even African Americans is something like DNA wise that I mean, nobody really understands the reason why yet, but yeah, it's crazy. This is a weird one, man. It's very real.
Well,
it's very real. You can go on with that.
One of the reasons it affected the African American community so harsh was because in a lot of our communities, we have very bad health care. And so, of course, people getting sick, not knowing. Like, I have a friend of mine, he's running for a spot in New York City for city councilman. And he's from the South Bronx, and it's one of the worst hit areas because of the way I guess the health crisis is, South Bronx is one of the worst communities in the city. So of course that area is inflicted much more than certain other areas compared to maybe certain parts of Manhattan that you have people of wealth and more money that have access to better health care than you would have someone in the South Bronx who really doesn't have that option to go visit a good hospital or have access to available health care, because not everyone has health care.
And that's a factor that plays into account too. And you look at from the middle class and lower class income families or people that are poor, when this virus sweeps in, they are out of luck. And it's one of those situations where, and I'll be honest, there's even higher class people too that at one point thought, I'm going to be good no matter what because I have income that's coming in, residual income and stuff like that. Businesses are closing. So now you got a shrinking high class. You got the middle class that's scrambling around. Businesses are, doesn't matter if it's a small business or a corporation. You got the middle class that's suffering too. And then on top of that, you got poor people that have already been in the struggle in terms of trying to find some kind of financial footing. Then you turn around and look and they're getting infected too. So it's one of those situations where when you look at the whole entire spectrum, the choice you have is limited because of what this pandemic has done. Now, I'm going to go into what freedom means to me based on how I'm feeling right now. And I'll be completely honest with y'all. July 4th used to be one of my favorite holidays. The bright colors, the red, white, and blue, seeing fireworks, nice weather usually. And a lot of that had to do with the peak of summertime. I like the summertime. I can deal with extreme heat to a point. And I like the beach. Those things all together I like. Not a problem. However, we get to this year, and in previous episodes on this show, the one constant that we have talked about, we have not shied away from racial issues. And no matter how many times that we have tried to talk about solutions amongst ourselves, we noticed that the trend was still happening. Things were still going on to the point where it was like you were getting exhausted of the conversation because you felt like nobody was listening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when the unfortunate situation happened with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and Elijah McCloud, and stuff of that nature, when all that happened back to back against each other, and we were, it's one of those situations where I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid to leave my home, because if this can happen to somebody who's jogging, if this can happen to somebody that's just out by the corner, if this is somebody that is even in the comfort of their own home, this type of, judging based on complexion instead of color, this type of divisiveness, this type of discernment, lack of discernment, I should say, if this is going to keep happening, I don't feel comfortable pulling up to a beach, pulling up to a park, and watching fireworks go in the air like I have something to be proud of about this country right now. And I'm not, it's one of the things where I understand the opportunity that we have here. Growing up, for me to be always being creative stuff, and for me to be able to do this, it's I have that freedom to do it because I've been told it's my right as an American. However, and thankfully we all have that freedom of speech that is granted to us. But when I turn around and see what is happening, I can't necessarily say, and I'm saying this on the 4th of July, I can't necessarily sit over here, partake in those festivities, and still be proud to be an American, knowing that other fellow Americans are suffering and are not given the same liberty and the same freedoms that I have. And I would say this about, and if this was, and let me say this, an injustice in one spot can always be an injustice everywhere else. So if the roles were reversed and this was somebody of a different ethnic group going through all this, I would be just as upset. And I would feel the same way about July 4th now if it was a role where another group was getting oppressed. That's just where I'm at. I feel like when it comes to freedom, I feel like it's conditional for certain people that have to fit in a certain way. To me, it feels like high school. Like you have to fit a certain criteria and you have to be a certain way to get a certain type of level of freedom. And it's one of and this is hard for me to say this because everybody knows about the opportunity here. Everybody knows that we've seen people succeed here. But with everything going on, the lack of compassion that I've seen, not just on social media, but also in the media, lack of compassion towards each other at times, it's disheartening. I'm not saying that everybody's acting this way, but you know how it is when you see things like this.
To me, I just feel like it's just that instead of us being united, and it's not just one party, it's both parties.
Yes.
They're trying to unite this country. It seems like they're just trying to force more chaos between us. They don't want us. What people don't understand is that a country united, especially its people united, there's no holding us back. There's no stopping us. But they don't want us to unite it. They don't want. That's not the way they want us. They want us to be able to. They want us to control us. They want to basically control us. They want to tell us what to do. They want us fighting amongst each other. They want the black. They want the brown. They want white. They want us all fighting to get against each other instead of uniting as a country. And we're supposed to be one big melting pot. And then that's what I love so much about this country is you can come from anywhere in the world and you can become successful in this country. It's just that's what's so great about this place, that I'm saying you can just come here and you're afforded an opportunity to better yourself and live a better life. But it's just a system right now that's not beneficial, is not helpful to people of color. I come from New York City, which had stock and frisk as one of the main things that they used to do in the city. And me and my nephew came out of a pizza shop we had went ordered a pie, came out, and because we fit a description, they stopped us and frisked us, and that was like humiliating. I'm saying it was embarrassing. I had my mom in the car sitting waiting, but yeah, they want to come and stop us and frisk us, and I'm like, yo, officer, my mom's sitting here in the car. He took us to the side around the corner, whatever, and did what he did, but he stopped us because we fit a description, and that just didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, profiling. Yep.
It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And being a man of color, I shouldn't have to be afraid to come out my house and worry that I'm gonna get shot. I really don't. And it's happened quite a few times. I've been pulled over, and cops come from the back of the rear of the car with his hand on his side, and like roll all your windows. Like, okay, it's just a routine stop. Why is all this necessary? And it's just heartbreaking because I love this country. I have family. My uncle's a U.S. Marine. He served to defend this country. I have nephews that have fought and served in this country for this country, and I have family that are police officers. I support our police officers, but I don't support these cops that are out here killing people without no justice. These cops, it seemed like this man just stood on his neck and he knew he was going to get away with it. He just had that look on his face, and it hurt. It hurts so bad to see someone's life be taken away. I cried. I honestly did cry. Because for everyone to see a man's life taken away, and these people not blink an eye, like it's normal for them, like they knew they weren't going to get in trouble. That's an issue. That's a serious issue, and I don't think we need to disband the police, but we need proper training. I'm saying, because without the police, we won't have law and order. But we need officers to be properly trained. The first thing shouldn't be pull and shoot and then ask questions, because that's not the way it goes, man. If we learned anything, especially when it's people of color and police officers, it seems like the first thing they want to do is just draw their guns. And we need to start training our officers to de-escalate situations rather than pulling their guns.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that there needs to be kind of a solution done on a federal level where that can take place. I think there needs to be, I've said this before, I think there needs to be mental health evaluations before we grant them the badge and the gun and all the equipment. I think that we do need to have also, while they're in the force, I think we do need to have a mental health evaluation every 2 years. We need to have ethical reviews where police officers are reviewing themselves, giving honest reviews, confidential reviews. I do also think that it's also very important, if somebody grew up in that area, that's where they need to be put and stationed as a police officer, because you're familiar with that area. You know the people there. You can make relationships in that community. You can uplift the community that way. That trust is already built there because you're from there. Instead of, moving somebody around that isn't familiar with the area and doesn't know how to treat those people. I think that would be a big help. I think that also, like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was, and Rick, I'm gonna let you chime in too. I ain't forget about you.
No, you're good, man. I'm listening to a lot here, and I've got a lot of thoughts going. I'm enjoying where this is going too. I like the conversation. Yeah, absolutely. I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was like, "Well, what solutions do you have to like put a lot of the restraint and a lot of the angst and a lot of the anger when it comes to the rioting and stuff of that nature?"
And he said, don't get it twisted. I'm upset about George Floyd just as much as you are and stuff of that nature. But I'm like, what could be a solution? I said, well, it's very simple. Instead of putting the police blocking a whole street armed like that in full-on SWAT gear, have each one by the actual building. So now what you do is when you do that, you take away the public. They already going to view you a certain type of way, but you're allowing them to have a clear path where they can protest peacefully instead of you coming in looking like the evil empire barrier. Also, communication is important. Somebody has to stand in the gap and say, look, I'm upset about this as much as you are. I'm from this community, and as somebody who's a police officer and from this community, I'm just as upset as you are. I'm just as ticked off as you are. He made the badge look bad. He made us look bad. I'm disgusted by that video. I'm angered by that video. I'm not here to police you. I'm not here to beat you over the head with the club. I'm not here to shoot. I'm not here to do any of that. I'm simply here for your protection, period. I think what you guys are doing is a good thing. If a police officer says those things, whether it's a police chief that's going to be out there for those protests, now the protesters, whoever the protest leaders are and the volunteers, now they understand, I know the heart of this officer now. That communication is important. Me saying that, imagine how powerful that is if an officer just communicates and says, look, I don't agree with it. I'm just as angered as you. This is how we're going about it. And then he goes in and explains that. So I was mentioning to my friend that that's how you alleviate the tension. You have to alleviate the tension because I looked at what was going on in DC and the tear gas. These guys were literally in line in the middle of the street, blocking the protesters from getting to a certain point. I understand there's certain parts they can't just go run amok in the city. Okay, but there's a way more humane way, calm way of doing it. If you don't want them touching the buildings, just have an officer stand by a building or have a couple officers stand by each building, but still let them pass through and then have somebody communicate what their intention is. So that's when I was mentioning that to him. In my head, I'm like, us as people who are not of the government. Am I right about that? We're not government affiliated.
No.
We're not working with, you know what I mean?
No.
So if
Not yet.
not yet. If the common citizens can come up with a solution like that, it goes back to what Will said. How come these politicians can't come up with the same solution? And they sitting in there for these meetings for 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having these discussions. It's crazy to me because I'm like, this country makes millions of dollars off of division. Division is a multi-million-dollar industry.
It is.
You're hitting the nail on the head on that. Yeah, man.
It is a multi-million-dollar industry. They will pay buku money to have me hate Rick for whatever reason. They will pay ads to have Will hate me for whatever reason. And they look at it as residual income when it's passed down to the next generation. Like, that's why it's hard for me on 4th of July weekend and on 4th of July to be like, I'm proud to be an American. I'll be honest with y'all. I'm just being transparent. And this is a uncensored podcast. Y'all say how y'all feel. I don't feel proud to be an American right now because I'm tired. I'm 29 and I'm sick of it. So you could imagine how the 40-year-old feels, how somebody older than him feels. And then on top of that, The teenager is feeling that weight because let's be for real. The Gen Z generation is very, very in tune to what's going on. They are alert.
I'm 43, so I'm Gen X. So, and I feel we kind of dropped the ball in a way, even though there was so many things against us as far as everything that happened in the 70s with Nixon and his law and order campaign, and then with Reagan and his just say no to drugs and his campaign on the war on drugs, to Bush, even to Clinton, whose bill actually made it worse for minorities. I'm saying the bill he signed into effect basically militarized our police forces. That's what it basically did. It militarized the police forces in major urban cities. So you had more. So now you have cops who are great cops and all that. Now you also giving these bad cops, some of these bad cops, extra like training on certain things as far as with the Breonna Taylor situation with the no-knock warrants. Had they not had that law in effect, Breonna Taylor might still be alive. It's like they gave these cops so much leeway and freedom that they actually barged into the wrong home and killed this young lady, and then arrested her boyfriend, even though he was later released, arrested him for attempted murder. When you came into his house, what do you expect? It's like, if you barge into my house, I'm letting off some rounds.
Right.
You're not gonna just barge into my house and I'm not going to protect my family. Yeah,
no kidding. I feel you there. There's
so many of these laws that went into effect that it made these laws that they just put into effect made prisons much more of a business than that is now. Because now it's a booming business. It's a business that it's in the trillions probably right now, because some of these privatized prisons are making boku money from the government, paying them to take care of prisoners, and so a lot of these offenders on minor offenses. But this is a new form of slavery that they found the loophole in. Whereas when you get arrested, one of the laws that we have is if you get arrested in a felony or whatever, you lose all your rights basically as a citizen. You lose your rights to vote. You lose your rights to have a driver's license, even though you served your time. And that's what jail is supposed to be. It's supposed to be reformed. So if you served your time, I feel you should receive back all your privilege. You should receive your right to vote, your right to have a driver's license, because you paid your debt to society. But what they're doing is just, now that they're not giving these people any more options. It's like, once you're a felon, it's not your jobs are limited. Everything is limited for you. You really don't have many options but to go back to the life that you were living.
That might be some of the sweeping reform that we're talking about too, that could come at a federal level. And this is just spitballing, because there's a lot of different scenarios that come into play with this. Is that felonies? You're talking about felonies, right?
Yeah.
There are probably some things that are classified as felonies right now that maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Just like there's things like misdemeanors, I mean, whether you're for or against legal marijuana, that whole thing was caught up in the 60s and 70s in a political agenda.
Yes.
So whether you're for it or against it, the reason why that became illegal is because of a political agenda back at that time. It was lumped in with other things like cocaine and LSD. It was just a bunch of things that it was just like this blanket that was put over everything.
Yeah.
So it wasn't examined very well, but at that time, take a look at what the politicians were doing. They were looking at the people, and some people were up in arms. A certain class of people were up in arms about these illicit drugs, and marijuana got lumped in with it. And I don't need to say really where I stand on that side of things, but it's just that it was almost like a casualty because of the classes that a lot of the politicians were kind of putting into place.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about police reform, there's the federal government, yes, and there's certain things, but there's also the 10th Amendment that exists. And I've been interviewing constitutional experts for this documentary too. The 10th Amendment pretty much says that anything that's not in the federal Constitution, any power, including police powers, is relegated to the states to decide what was going on. And the theory behind that, at least how our founding fathers had intended it, is that this is a really freaking big country. And certain types of people, at least back then, are going to gravitate towards different parts of the country. So you had farmers that were pretty much in the Midwest. You had manufacturing that was in different parts of the cities. And they were just different social groups. It wasn't necessarily different races, but it was different social groups, which means that you have different social problems or different social ethical issues that come up because it's just different styles of life between a farmer and a factory worker, or something else. So that's why they said, listen, there's at that time, however many states there were, even up until 1950, I think is when it was, there wasn't even Alaska or Hawaii. So let's just talk about the 48 contiguous states. Life is very different in Florida than it is in Iowa. Life is very different in New York City than it is in Salt Lake City. So that 10th Amendment, the intention behind it was to say, we understand that certain groups of people, different groups of social people, different religious beliefs are probably going to congregate together and group together in certain different areas of the countries. So when it comes to different types of laws that are not mentioned in the federal Constitution, we are entrusting that because we don't want a king. That's how the country was founded. We didn't want another king that just dictated everything, like King George over in England. So we have all these different governors in place, and then the governors go down to the legislatures within the states, but then we have counties, and then we have municipalities that have mayors. So and even within a state, because I live in Illinois, it's a really long state. There's a lot of counties in Illinois. There's a lot of counties. Yeah. There's a lot of counties in California. And there's a different way of life in wine country in California than there is in LA. So that's why there's even local authorities that exist. And that's kind of like the trickle-down effect, understanding that there's different levels or different groupings of socioeconomic principles that exist with different groups in the United States. So when it comes to federal, I think there's like a minimum. This is just spitballing, I think there's a minimum that can be established. But the principle of that trickle down is if we do establish too much at a federal level, then it's going to blanket people. And then there's going to be people up in arms in California against people in Iowa because it's a different way of life in California than it is in Iowa. There's different problems, different scenarios that come up. And that's also why we don't have this whole king or monarchy scenario that we have going on in different, or really what we broke away from, why the Declaration of Independence was signed. From where I live to where you guys live, it's just there's some similarities, and maybe those things are where we can unite on. And I would love to see that because obviously there's something that needs to be done. But at the same time, I don't want to see our individual rights taken away or even our socioeconomical rights taken away because it's just different groups of people. And this isn't even about race. This is just about different types of societies that live in different parts of the United States.
It's definitely economical with a lot of the issues we have in this country. Yes, we have some race, yes, with race issues, yes, but a lot of it also has to do with economics. It's basically it's like a lot of these politicians cater to these big corporations.
Yeah,
whereas they should be like, why are these corporations getting trillions of dollars, but you give your citizens one check for $1,200?
Yeah,
it's like, and then you have to, and then they try to make you feel like, oh, you need to kiss our butts for giving you this $1,200, when in all actuality it was our own tax money that they're giving back. So it's just so. It's just not just racism. It's also economic change that we need, and we need to stop catering to these big corporations and help these small family businesses right now that are going under. That and it's heartbreaking. It's like, how come Walmart and all these big corporations can stay open, but the mom and pop store down the street has to close because your state or your city official mandated it, but they didn't mandate Walmart or none of these other big corporations to close down. They didn't mandate these big chain restaurants to close down, but yet whoever down the street who has a nice local restaurant has to close down his restaurant.
There's a lot of equity and power when you run an Amazon, when you run a Walmart, when you run a corporation that employs thousands of people and that keeps the wheel, that keeps the hamster wheel running for the middle class, which is, in my opinion, the backbone of the country. You have a lot of people that are involved in the middle class that keep this country running, that keep the money circulating and stuff of that nature. And I do agree with you guys that from an economic standpoint, the system needs changing. Because, I find it very interesting that the middle class is constantly being the backbone of the working environment. And they're really in. And have we seen people elevate in class? Yes, we have. But there's a reason why we call the 10% the 10%. There are tactics put in place. There is information that is not shared to everybody, regardless if it's on the internet or not. Because if you don't show it, if the algorithm isn't allowing you to see certain things, which that is happening on social media,
yeah,
then how are you going to get the information to propel yourself to a whole nother level? And I'm not talking about just the regular. Of course, they're going to tell you about stocks. Of course, they're going to tell you about bonds. Of course, they're going to tell you about grant money you can get for college. Of course, they're going to tell you about things that everybody should know to get you hype to work with people in their corporations that have access to these things, because they want to make money off of you anyway. But I'm talking about the stuff that's not in front of people's faces. I'm not talking about the basic economical things to help people elevate. I'm talking about the stuff that nobody knows about. I'm talking about the intentions of the people that are giving out the loans and what are they doing on the back end. Nobody's talking about when you put these money in banks, they're turning around and these banks are turning around and flipping your money and making profits off of it, and you only getting like 1%, 2%, or less than 2%, less than 1% if you're lucky.
The rule of 72. Yeah,
right.
The rule of 72, which is the banker's rule, where we're not. That's something we're not taught in schools, where you go and you put your money in the bank for savings, but then they go out and they give you not even 1% in some cases, and they go loan out your money for 20, 30, whatever percentage that they get on interest, and then just profiting off for your money. And that's what we don't know. That's what something we're not, especially me growing up in Brooklyn, New York. That's not one thing. That's not something we were taught. We were not taught about how to invest and how to open certain accounts, whatever, invest in properties, and that's not something we were taught. When I was in high school, they had just started taking out, because growing up in New York, you could go and get a skill when you graduated high school. You would graduate as an electrician, you would graduate as a mechanic, and these are things that they started taking away from us. And taking away from the cities and communities and music and all these other things. That's just another topic. But it's just so many different things that I feel that they've just taken away from the people and it's just causing so much chaos. It's like and it's just like with as far as when I was trying to say before was I feel my generation of guys we kind of got lackadaisical. We didn't like we got happy with whatever civil rights reforms that they got after Dr. King and all that. That I feel my generation, instead of really keeping pushing the issue and keep trying to make change, we got complacent with where we were in life. We got we got the right to vote. Okay, that's great. And we just stopped there. We didn't proceed with more. We didn't proceed with trying to better our kids' future. We basically just stood complacent and stood happy with getting the scraps off the table that we were getting.
It's crazy to think that with Dr. Martin Luther King, that was really only like 60 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's
when you think about it, that's a short period of time.
Yes, it is.
Very short.
You know, and even in that time, I look back at the changes. You know, because if I were to, you know, I don't necessarily know who I identify with as far as if you have a two-party system. You know, because there's some sides that I feel like I align with the Democratic Party. There's some sides that I feel like I align with the Republican Party. You know, but if I were to look back and we're talking 60, 70 years ago, even though I might lean more towards the right now, you know, it's more like a lot of the civil rights were really initiated by the Democratic Party of old. And that party has tremendously changed over the past 60 years. And I feel, especially from a racial perspective, because it used to be like the Republicans were the old religious white dudes, you know, and the Democrats were the ones that were extremely progressive, you know, but now it's the Democratic Party is way more for a socialism perspective than they are for a free America. It's interesting how you see that transition take place too. And then of course, I won't even get into Joe Biden because it's a different story, you know, and everything that comes out of that dude's mouth, you know.
AKA Creepy Joe.
Yeah, yeah. But the racial perspectives that you're talking about, and even the education perspectives, are interesting. And education is something that definitely, absolutely needs to be mandated from a federal level. I was actually kind of encouraged during the COVID-19 pandemic that schools were taken out of session. Now, my kids I have twin 13-year-olds. They just turned 13 this week. And I have a younger dude that's 10. And it's a boy-girl twin, so it's a fun dynamic in our house. But we pulled them out of public school before this year started. And they've been in an online private university. You know, it's probably, I think, one of the best systems that exists right now because it's on Zoom, just like we're on right now. They can text message their teachers to set up a private appointment, a private Zoom call to get help. Otherwise, they have videos that they watch for almost like self-education in some of the subjects, and other classes are live classrooms, you know, with maybe 25 or 30 kids. And I saw them thrive this year, you know, as they started going through that, because the education system that we have, and this gets into the classes we're talking about too, the education system that we have that was really founded about 100 years ago was made during a time of high manufacturing in this country. And manufacturing has now pretty much gone away because there's a more global economy that exists. At least it's gone away from the United States a lot. You know, and whether you think that manufacturing jobs should come back or whether they should stay global, that doesn't really matter much, because where we're at right now is that a lot of the middle class, the elimination of the middle class that we've talked about, is really tied to the elimination of manufacturing. Yeah. And the elimination of manufacturing, that industry was really tied to where our education system was founded.
Yeah.
So if manufacturing started to go away and our education system stayed the same, there's a disconnect there, because we're not teaching people how to thrive in the new economy that exists right now. Because let's say we can import things from a different country. It doesn't have to be China. You know, no matter what you think about China, it can be any other country that manufactures anything. And now we teach people social media skills. We teach people online marketing skills. My kids are learning how to code when they're in 4th grade. You know, that's with the online private university that exists, because it's things that are right now versus kids that are at the same pace, you know, but that's something that needs to be federally mandated to do a revamp. I was really encouraged and hopeful when the pandemic hit and I saw that school came to a grinding halt, hoping that there would be this huge sweeping reform. But now the huge sweeping reform we see is face masks in schools. Yeah, and then I'm not saying I'm for or against face masks. It's just that was the wrong focus.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
focus should have been the entire education system.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and listen, I'm not a face mask person because I know the effects that these masks are having on people. Like me personally, right? I'm a table games dealer at a casino, and we just opened up 2 weeks ago. And one of the requirements is either you wear a mask, a shield, and I decided my first 3 days back, I decided to wear a cloth mask. And I found myself every day after work exhausted, not wanting to do anything, just taking a shower and going straight to bed. And after 3 days of that, I was like, I can't do this. I can't be wearing a mask. This cloth mask isn't, and it isn't. It really isn't healthy for you because it's not helping you in any other way because it's just a cloth mask that's holding everything in it. And you're breathing basically back. You're breathing back your carbon monoxide when you have these masks on. So now my job decided that they wanted to keep smoking in the casino, whereas a lot of casinos, exactly. I just look
that helps.
That is so counterproductive.
Look in your face.
I was in the Bellagio, because I told you I was in Vegas filming, right? I was in the Bellagio walking through the casino, and at the blackjack tables, they have plexiglass in between each seat. And it's like this little cubby, right? And dudes are still lighting up cigars and cigarettes. And I just caught this out of the side of my head, out of the side of my eye, my peripheral vision. This dude lights up. And because it's such an enclosed space, it looked like a freaking flamethrower that was ignited because all the reflection, everything, it caught my attention. It made me jump a little bit. It looked like this dude was starting to throw some real flame at me.
Well, with us, they don't allow smoking at the table games. You have to go to a slot machine to go smoke. But just the fact that some of these people and listen, it's whatever you feel. If you don't want to wear a mask, then you shouldn't enter the establishment. That's my opinion. Because if that's the case, especially at a casino where the air is just horrible. The circulation of air in the casinos is just horrible.
Right.
So my thing was they should have just made it non-smoking. If you want to smoke, and I have friends that smoke, go outside and smoke. The employees go out and smoke.
Yeah.
So this just gave them a built-in reason not to wear a mask.
Dude, if this doesn't stop people from smoking, I don't know what will. When I was 16, I smoked for 6 months after my dad died. And it was one day in the shower. This just killed it, stopped cold turkey for me. And 6 months is plenty of time to get addicted. I realize it's not 10 years, but it's the way the drug works on your brain. I was just in the shower, woke up one morning, and I cough, and out comes this big wad of black phlegm. Just in 6 months, I'm like, that's in my lungs. Awesome, I'm done. And then my aunt just about a year later passed away, my dad's sister, his only sibling, from lung cancer because she was smoking unfiltered Pall Malls for like 50 years, like the worst of the worst. And I remember watching her in the hospital bed. It was about an hour before she passed, and she was taking what the paramedics and doctors called death breaths. To where she was just gasping for air, and seeing that, it's like this. I don't know why things like this are not covered in the media. I don't know why these sort of things. And, it comes back to the junk that's put in cigarettes, the tar and the other chemicals. And it's not just the tobacco plant that's in there. They're not, it's not clean.
All these toxins and all these other things that they put into these cigarettes that are, and instead of banning those such things and making those illegal, what do? We take corporate money and just like, we won't put ads on TV anymore.
Yeah.
If anything, they'll invest more. If anything, think about it, right? Alcohol, or the consumption of a lot of alcohol, is long term is going to mess you up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They still put ads up. They still pump it out. Liquor stores will never go out of business because they know somebody's going to need liquor.
Well, when we were on lockdown, since our liquor stores are run by the government, run by the state, and once the state shut down, our liquor stores shut down with them. So we had a dry Pennsylvania for the first month. So people were going crazy.
Right.
They were driving to New Jersey and New York to go to the liquor. And it got to the point where New Yorkers and owners, and they're like, no, you can't come over here and buy liquor. Yeah.
Right. And it's one of them things, man, like, so you add that craziness to the mix. And look, I'm not shaming somebody that socially drinks. I'm just talking about the addictive, acidic part that's not good health-wise.
Yeah.
You add that, you add smoking. Like, you can find this stuff no matter if you live in the suburbs or the hood. They're on every other corner.
Yeah.
This country, with its two-party system, with the amount of stuff that you could get into, and I'm not even going to start it on the whole medicine situation, because instead of doing natural medicine, now they got a pill for everything, and it's man-made, so you can't trust it because there's side effects to it.
Oh yeah,
and it's on into individual case.
Yeah, because then 10 years later, you're here, you see an ad. Were you on whatever? And if you were, you can be part of this joint lawsuit or whatever it is that they have going on right now. It's ridiculous. The FDA is a damn joke. It really is. There's certain things that other countries will not use, but we will use openly in this country like nothing. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's all driven by dollars again. That's what
right.
The FDA is, yeah. And how much you can spend in order to get your new medication pushed through, to get the stamp of approval on it. That's typically how that system's run. And I wish there was a different way for that. Because, I mean, even if we can say what we want to say on this show, even something, I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, but Fauci, everybody knows who Fauci is, right? And
Fauci.
That dude released yesterday that he's monitoring a new flu strain coming from China.
Oh yeah, it's from swine. Yeah,
exactly. And I look at that, it's like, well, it's almost like the next pandemic is already starting to be manufactured.
Yeah,
right there. And the vaccine didn't take off as quickly as possible because, guys, ethics is almost always a matter of dollars and cents, regardless. So when it comes to Fauci, he's on the board of the Gates Foundation. Bill Gates is trying to push a vaccine. Inside the vaccine is actually a contact tracer. It's an element to where they can see if you've had the vaccine or not. Now, this is all stuff that he's openly admitted to. So you can find it out that there's always an agenda that comes into some of these things. And that's unfortunately the way of things. And the way to combat that, and really we started asking what freedom is choice again. So how do we take back the choice? How do we take back, my kids are vaccinated, but there's those that are against vaccines. And to me, that's fine. Even though I made a choice to get my kids vaccines, if they don't want to get their kids vaccines, that's a choice, because that's a medical procedure that's injecting something foreign into their body. I chose to have it done for my kids. If someone else chooses not to have it done for their kids, that's fine, because they are that child's parent. It is their choice. That's freedom.
Yep, you're absolutely right with that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I won't argue with that. You have this. That's why I feel this country is the greatest, because we have the choices to do whatever we want. It's our choices to do whatever we want. So if I choose not to support a certain person, I won't. That's my choice, and that's why I love it.
Right on.
So
I want to hang out and talk politics with you guys on a podcast. I can.
Yeah,
right.
It's great.
Absolutely.
That's awesome about this.
Yeah, and I think it's very important, man. Like, it's very important for citizens to have progressive conversations and learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's so much information that we don't know. And if we can't let the media or whoever's telling us through a screen, whether it be phone or regular television, as to what it is, because there's an agenda. There's a ratings agenda when it comes to these media companies. Yep. So they're not going to tell you, for a perfect example, Chicago. I'll just use that as an example. People are treating Chicago like it's the Midwest Baltimore. That's what they're treating it as. They talk about the gang violence and this and that. But here's another problem. They don't mention about the protests that have been going on against Chicago and inner city violence within Chicago. They don't talk about the activists that are working every day to try to put the violence down and try to put that to rest. They don't talk about the good police officers that are out in the force every day trying to build up the community. You don't hear about these stories in Chicago because they're not pushing them, and it hurts the national narrative that could cause more separation and division. Like I said before, I told you all before, division is a multi-million-dollar business, and doggone it, if Fauci and Bill Gates get their way, it could turn into a billion-dollar industry. It probably already is, and I'm just not aware of it. However, we have to start having these conversations and getting perspective from people, and I don't care what their background is or what religion they have or what their sexual orientation is. Like, we need this feedback because we need to be aware when somebody is causing division on all sides. That is the steps that we need to take to get to some kind of freedom. Because you're going to, like, if we don't get to that step, then I'm going to, you know, when somebody says freedom to me in America, I'm going to roll my eyes a bit because it's like, well, like, are we? Like, is it conditional for some people? Like, you know, so that's where I'm at, where it's like I want to try to get to a point where we're having these, like, stuff like this is great. This is fantastic. If there were more conversations like this between citizens, and I know these conversations are happening. I'm not saying these conversations are not. I'm not too doom and gloom, but it's one of those things where I don't want to have the conversation for a moment because it's trendy and then it goes away. Yeah. And then it takes the next big outrage to happen for us to just have the conversation with no action again. And I just don't want to get into that pattern.
Man, I really appreciate your heart, because what you're talking about is literally what happened when this country was founded. In order to decide what goes in the Constitution, what's our strategy to break away from England? How do we ensure that all men are created equal on paper? There were conventions and conferences and 70 to 200 people in a room talking about these things for hours on end. And there were dozens of drafts of the Constitution that came up. You know, Thomas Jefferson started getting frustrated because he had so many different rewrites that he had to do. You know, at least that's how history is written, because of these types of conversations, because of those types of town hall meetings that took place. The town hall debates that we see right now are not reminiscent of what they were back then. Those town hall debates were saying, you know, we have 13 colonies right now, and society is going to look different in all 13 of those colonies. So how do we ensure that everybody maintains their freedom while still providing a baseline for equal rights? And those are the types of conversations. These are the types of conversations that I believe that we need to bring back around. And how do we scale this up? I don't have the answer to that right now, but hopefully this is a start, because really those types of conversations started 200 and something years ago, and they also stopped 200 and something years ago. That style to where we could really just come together and say, you know what? It doesn't matter if we're black. It doesn't matter if we're white, if we're Hispanic, whatever it is. It just matters that we're in the same room, because we're all moving in a certain direction. We all know what we want our outcome to be. So if we get there, that's really the America that I know and love from a historical perspective. And I want to see that come back around. However we can make that happen, this is an awesome start, and I feel so privileged to be a part of this.
And me personally, I feel that if people really want to start getting involved, they need to start at the local level. That's where it begins. That's where change really begins, is at the local level, is finding out who your local representatives are, finding out what they believe in, finding out what they're doing to better your community. And that's something a lot of people I feel have gotten away from. Whereas when I grew up, I knew who my local representative is. I'm sure a lot of people nowadays where they live, they probably don't know who they voted for or who this person is. So in order to really enact change, we have to really start at the local level. Everybody thinks that they have to come out and vote for the presidential election. No, I think the most important elections are those of the local officials and the local judges and local sheriffs and everything else in your in your community.
Well, that was George Floyd's brother too, right? He said the same thing when he was broadcasting live, and CNN picked it up. He's like, if you really want to make a difference, he goes, stop breaking things, stop stealing things. What are they going to think of us? If you're just projecting violence, that's all they're going to think that we are. And when I say it was mixed races in the protests and the looting and everything else. There was no division for race when it came to the looting and the riots.
It was everyone.
Exactly.
It was everybody.
You see
right
black,
on.
brown, white. You seen everybody taking everything. And
For sure. So he comes on and goes, you really want to make a difference? Get your ass out there and vote.
Yep.
Start at the local level. That's how you start to affect change. It took so many years even for African Americans to have that right, or for women to have that right
Exactly. Yep.
to vote. Now that we have it, almost less than half of America exercises it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the problem. That's the problem that's why you have these politicians that stay in office 30, 40 years and they stay with the same old boys club mentality and not willing to change. Well, then people need to really start going into these elections and start making change. Really go out.
Imagine if we had 100% voter turnout. How crazy that would be, that every single voice in America would be heard. What kind of a country would this be? To me, it seems like it would be an amazing place.
Yes.
Right. And also picture this. I've heard a lot of people say this too. Well, you're going to have to vote for either party anyway. Imagine if 100% 100% of the people voted, but they didn't vote for either party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now imagine how much of a loud statement that would be if you had 100% participation, but they did not vote for Republican. They didn't vote for Democrat. They voted for a completely different party. Now, what are you saying? You are now disrupting the very foundation of this division, in my personal opinion, because now you're shaking everything up. You might tick a lot of people off, but it's definitely one of those things where you're gonna have to make an aggressive statement like that. Like it ticks me off when I hear people say my vote doesn't matter. Are you kidding me? Your vote does matter. I looked at where some of these. I looked at the last election. Some of the candidates were only winning by 2,000, 12,000 votes in certain counties. Yeah. In some, it was like by hundreds of votes. So every vote matters. I think the biggest lie that Americans believed is that their voice didn't matter. I think that's the biggest lie.
Yeah. You're right on. That vote is their voice. That it always is, because if one person says my voice doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter, but there's probably at least 100 other people that think the same way they do, that have the same perspective, that are also saying my vote doesn't matter. But if, to your point, if all 100 of those people showed up and voted that have that same perspective, that same idea, that could swing a local election.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm excited talking about this because it's one of those situations where we have a lot. I don't care what anybody says. I've heard people bash a younger generation. I've heard people bash different generations. Let's get out of that mindset.
Yeah,
we have a lot of smart, capable people in this country. I understand that some people are going to be ignorant. I'm not speaking to them. I'm speaking to the people that have great potential, that are going to do good things, and I know it, and I feel it in my heart. And this is the thing that I will say. We have great people in this country that will stand in the gap and fight for what they believe in. Not on a violent, reckless level, but on a very articulate, well thought out, well planned, executed on that level, to where we're not falling for the shuck and jive division marketing that you guys have been doing for 100 plus years to keep everybody divided. So if we got to focus on, if you try to pin this group against this group, we are in the background educating both groups on the chess move that you're trying to do to them both. Those kind of strategic things, those kind of things that are going on where it gets to the point where the powers that be that are at the root of this division are gonna be like, daggone it, they are like, every time we do a chess move, we end up being in checkmate. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm getting tired. Like, to the point it frustrates the people that only care about their pockets and not the people. And I think it's very, very important that people understand and also know their worth. Like, I am proud of the protests that happened. There were a lot of people united out there and just wanted change. And they wanted to accomplish something that was bigger than them. And they wanted to do something where, you know, they looked at it from a standpoint of that could have happened to a friend of mine that I know, that could have happened to a family member that I know. That type of situation could cause my family a lot of pain if I was in that situation. So it stirred a lot of minds of a lot of people. This pandemic mixed with the racial tension and the protests and stuff going on, it made people realize across the board, as an American citizen, you should not have 100% of your faith in a two-party system. It's not gonna work. They move on equity and leverage. They pick and choose what they want to get behind if it's beneficial for them. I've seen, perfect example, black people have been ignored on both sides. That I've seen, that I know. However, I've seen Republicans ignore gun owners when the Democratic Party comes in and villainizes the gun orders whenever there's a school shooting, whenever somebody is getting shot by police brutality and stuff of that nature. Well, we need to take the guns because this, and that. However, here comes the Republican Party saying, these guys are trying to take away your guns. So you got two extremes here. And you're talking to a group of people generically that individual wise may not even be associated with that type of extreme ideology. Like, I brought this to protect my family, point blank, period. And then another thing is what I noticed, what the Democratic Party has done. You want the black vote so bad. We give you the black vote. You don't do nothing with it. You ignore us until you need our numbers. You ignore us until you need our buying power. So every year you make the Republican candidate or the party, if he is a white man, you make him out to be the leader of the KKK, which is not fair to him. Because you know deep down that racism stirs black people up. Like I don't like the manipulative game, and I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. If you've heard my podcast, you know Everett is going to speak on racism unapologetically. You know I don't have a problem doing that. But however, back to this, it's one of those situations where I see these manipulative chess games being played with people in the military, gun owners, African Americans, those who are in the LGBTQ community. I see these games that are being played with different groups, with Latinos, even with Caucasian people, even with Native Americans. Like, I see the chess games that are played throughout the year. And it's sad. But the one thing that's going to change all that is we have to strategize, come together, strategize, and figure out a plan. If black people are being, which is going on right now, if black people are being treated a certain way and viewed a certain way within the police department, then at this point, Black Lives Matter and the whole entire nation needs to understand that. If somebody is attacking somebody who is gay, lesbian, or transgender from that community, and we have seen cases where transgender people are being attacked, then their lives matter too, and we standing in the gap for them. Because this isn't right. Like, just because your lifestyle is different than mine doesn't mean that I'm gonna treat you like a second-class citizen. You should be able to live your life as you see fit. So I'm not gonna treat you like a second-class citizen as an American. You have that right to be treated on the same level that I'm treated. Why? Because you here. You in a melting pot. We need to make this fair. That is gonna be the key. Because if you stop the chess game and force them through very articulate strategy, then they have no choice but to be truthful. They have no choice to walk with a certain level of integrity. They have no choice to adhere to what the citizens have to say. Because if you don't, we're just going to vote you out and you have no equity and leverage at all. Go find something else. Look for new work. But you're not being a part of this, deciding what we do. And possibly doing something to take away our freedom, change our livelihood, and to simply, and the sad thing about it is there have been so many lives lost indirectly because of these games and chess moves of division that it causes strife and people to be upset. And I think that us realizing that we are all being pawns in a bigger chess game and that we really need to figure out amongst ourselves, okay, he can move like a bishop. That's his talent. Let's link up together. He can move like a rook. So let's link up with her or him. Hey, she's a queen. There's certain ways on the chessboard that she can maneuver around. So let's bring that chess piece in and utilize that. So that way we can win the game together instead of being all separated trying to win a game.
And that's what it is. Like how you said with the gay, lesbian community, and then you have the Latino community, and then you have the black. It's so many divisions. It's like they have so many different they've got so many different divisions going on right now. Instead of uniting all together and just being like, listen, we all won. We all just should come together and fight as one, because we're all fighting for the same thing. We're all fighting for equality. We're all fighting to be treated better in this country. So why not just come in as one? And they want to continue to have us separated as groups. They make too much money off of it. Yeah, that's the best way to have it. That's the best way to have it, is to have us have the Black Lives movement, have the Gay Pride movement, all these different movements where we're like, oh, we're all hyped up. Yeah, just this movement. When in all actuality, we should just all come together and create change, because we all want the same thing. We all want the opportunity to live life to the fullest and with equal rights for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're black, brown, transgender, what, Native American. It doesn't matter. We're all American. That's what I'm saying. We're all Americans. That's it. Yeah. It doesn't. For me, I don't even think we should be having, well, what are you, Latino, black? No, I don't think. Listen, we're all Americans. So why does it matter if I'm black or white or brown? Why do we even have these questions? Because
it's all a part of the division system.
If we're all Americans, what does it matter that if Rick is white or I'm Puerto Rican or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans. So none of these things should be. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't. I personally don't think what race or whatever you are should be counted in any job application you're applying for, or any application. It doesn't matter to me.
That's due to the Band-Aid on the system, you know, to make, because there's quotas that exist, in the large corporations, to say you have to, in order, that are put forth by HR departments, because somebody in some seat, some chair somewhere decided we need to have our entire workforce, if it's Best Buy. I'm choosing Best Buy because I worked for Best Buy years ago. They had at that time 70,000 employees. So let's say hypothetically their HR top guru said we need to have our workforce be 25% black. End of story. But that's literally what happens, because they start to put these ratios that they feel would be somewhat logical in order to say we're equal opportunity. But that's also because it's a Band-Aid system, because they don't trust the people that are coming in, because racism is a real thing. It's an emotion that's rooted deep into our country's history, deep into world history, but that's rooted into some manager at some point in somewhere in this corporation, to where they're faced with three individuals that could be very equal in abilities to do the job. It could be a white female, it could be a black man, it could be a Hispanic female, that are all right there. And just because maybe this person is racist, but he doesn't really like women that much, he might actually choose the white woman just because the others are of color. Or maybe it's a female that's sitting behind the desk and she thinks that female power is the only way to go. And now she's thinking, oh, I'm going to hire the female Hispanic because I'm a black woman and I see a black man there, but I'm for women more than I am for men. So now I'm going to choose this woman over here. So the people that are making the decisions have this deep-rooted stuff because they've been conditioned so long in our country with this, and for that takes time to undo. It really does, because it's so deep-rooted that it just takes time to unweave that web and start to get people to think again, hey, we're all Americans. But what's the best way? We talked about it already, is to get everybody in the same room and start to just express our viewpoints and express the differences and come to a ground that we can all agree with, because, again, we're all still wanting the same outcome. That same person sitting behind that desk is just recognizing and resonating with who they are already and saying, I feel like my society, my race, my gender has been oppressed over the years. So I'm going to try to do my part, because in this scenario, I have some sort of limited power to make this choice. So I'm going to do what I can. And you know what? That's great, because that decision is actually not a bad one to come from. If they're saying, I want to try to lift up who I am because I feel like I've been oppressed. However, if they're looking across the table and saying, I'm just going to make this decision because I don't like that other person, I don't like the color of their skin, somehow, some way, we should be able to screen those things out. But that's the Band-Aid that exists in the system, to where you have to check the boxes on the employment application. That way they're saying, hey, let's not get in trouble here. Even though we think a certain way, let's just not get ourselves in trouble and lose our own jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I want to kind of give everybody a chance to get their final points in on just everything that we've talked about today. And Will, I'll have you start off, and then we'll go back to Rick, and then I'll close. But I just want to kind of give everybody the floor. Any last statements? Because I think we've covered a lot in this episode, and at the end of the day, I think that equality is the major, the final nail of everything that we're trying to build up for, is for equality. That's pretty much it.
I could be an optimist, but I feel that is what most of Americans want.
Yeah.
Right.
There are the bigots that exist, absolutely.
Yeah,
and still that old guard that still has to be changed out. But I really feel that most Americans really just want equality, period.
And again, a lot of these people, a lot of these people aren't truly racist. They're just ignorant. They're not aware of they just think it's the norm to them. And it's not because they're racist. Because I have a friend, he would give me the shirt off his back, and he made a comment that didn't sit well with me. But I didn't bash him or anything, because I knew where his heart is. I knew what kind of person he truly was. So we need to learn that, listen, people have their opinions, and not all people are racist, and some people just are blind. They just don't know. And to me, we just need to have conversation like we're having now. We need more Rick is absolutely right. We need more people to come together, more people from different races to come together and sit down and talk like human beings, like civil people. Have normal conversation where you don't have to be yelling and fighting. Oh, just because I don't agree with your opinion, that's what's so great about this country, is that's your right to have your own opinion. I have friends that are Trump supporters, that's on them. I have friends who are Biden supporters. That's on them. I don't dislike them more because it's because I know. Listen, who you are and who you choose is your choice. And again, like I said, that's what's so great about this country is that you're allowed the avenues and everything that you choose to go down. And what we really truly do need to do is just get together and start talking. Just have conversation, not bash each other and not try to find dirt on each other and not try to like make one person look worse than the other. When in all actuality, it's like we need to just start focusing on the people and getting more support for the people and getting us what we truly need. We need education reform. We need prison reform. We need so many things that we should be getting, but we're not because they're focused more on corporate America. And I just want us as a country to really unite and do what we can truly do, and that's truly be the greatest country in the world, because we have so many different people in this country, and that's what makes us unique. It is that we have people from all over the world that want to come here and live the American dream, and they can. And I get it. We need immigration reform. I agree. Yes, completely. But what we truly do need is just people to sit down and come and talk and really unite and get things going.
Rick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man.
Your thoughts.
There's a song. I grew up with a huge spiritual background, and I think it's still the best-selling Christian rock band of all time, which is a funny phrase to say because the most Christian music, from a rock perspective, is a little bit behind mainstream. But these guys at DC Talk, they had a song called "Color People," and I remember the line in there is that I see the beauty in the tones of our skin. We're tipping our hat to the colorful arrangement. And I love that because what else makes us unique? Who wants everybody to look the same?
Right.
And who wants everybody to feel the same? That's not it, because that's what makes us human beings. Because I know from business, I know from a pastoral background that I have, that really great wisdom comes in a multitude of counselors. Because when you get people together and they all express different viewpoints, there are things that there are no way that I could have ever thought of myself, or perspectives that I never could have had because I am not living that person's life and they're not living my life. If we can just get together in rooms more frequently like this will drive us forward to the America that we at least have the idea what it should be. And I can't wait to see that. I think it will be coming. I think it's going to take some long, hard years before we get there. But I'm hoping that this is the start of it. It sucks that violence has to spark this. It really is. But at the same time, you look back at the Revolutionary War, a war is pretty freaking violent. Yeah. It's not like I agree with the riots. I don't agree at all with the riots and the looting, because that's American on American. That's like cannibalizing our own society, our own people. And if we can realize that we just look across, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's right across the table from us, saying, that's my American brother, that's my American sister, rather than that's a white dude, that's a Hispanic dude, that's a black guy, a black woman over there. Who cares? Who freaking cares? Because we are all Americans. And when we see that, I don't think we would want to injure another American if we're all going after the same mission. And that gives us that thing that is bigger than ourselves, which all human beings, men, women, children, want to go after. They want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. That can be an America that we can be proud of. Absolutely. I definitely agree. With that being said, first off, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. This is the first time, everybody. This is the first time I've met these individuals. It's the first time we've all linked up. Yep. And I'm proud and I'm honored to be amongst you two because of your perspective, because of your grace, because of your just how you guys are very blunt, but you guys
tell like it is, and you guys are just, but at the same time, you're down to earth and approachable. So I just want to thank you for that type of personality that you guys have exhibited on this show. I want to thank you guys for, being so open and willing to not just listen to my point of view, but listening to each other's point of view and bouncing off ideas. I just want to thank you guys so much for having such a progressive conversation. And I definitely would like to have both of you guys on again in future episodes. When I have future episodes coming up to talk about, of course, other stuff and ways and solutions that we could bring people more together. And also vice versa. If there's any way I could support you guys' brand and what you guys are doing, I'd be more than happy to do that. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Well, since you mentioned it, yeah, you can actually come on my show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely come on.
Right on, right back at you too.
Rick, definitely you're invited as well. I would love to have both of you guys on, man.
Thanks. Same here. Absolutely. And if anyone from your audience wants to reach to me, they can find me on any social platform at Mr. Rick Jordan.
Definitely, man. And Will, what platform can they find you? What platform can they find you on? Where can we get your information from?
Well, you could reach me. You can go to my website. It's stuck in my mind. It's www.stuckinmymind2020.com, and you'll find the links to all the I'm on iTunes, Spotify, whatever other platforms they're on. You have access to my social media accounts. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I have a Facebook fan page, so you can get it straight from my website.
Okay, absolutely, man. And Rick, is there any more information where they can find majority of your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my website is rickjordan.tv, but for the time being, there's libertylockdown.com. That's the documentary that I'm producing right now. That's really about government overreach. So all the way at the back at the beginning of the show when you said, hey, how do you define freedom? And I said, well, really, it's choice, the ability to make a choice. And that's really what I saw was taken away in a lot of scenarios. What was that choice of pretty much everything? It doesn't matter really where you stand, because there's a lot of things. And when I say that, typically they think that, I'm against masks. Or even though I just posted a video today of me dancing 90s style to, gonna make you sweat with a mask on in public, but because I say it, but that's not the thing. It's just that where does it stop, And if we stick to our Constitution, the freedom of choice always needs to be there. That's really what the film's about. People need to still make livings. People need to stay healthy. It's everything that needs to be included in that discussion. That's what the film's about.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely supportive of that film, and definitely be on the lookout for that, ladies and gentlemen. That was produced by Rick Jordan. Let's make sure that we support him because not only would it be entertaining to watch that, it's definitely educational. With that being said, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. Once again, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Will, Rick, you guys have been amazing.
Thank you.
I appreciate
you having me on, man. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's me being I just started podcasting 2 months ago, and this is actually my first podcast that I'm on. So I'm actually humbled and I appreciate you having me on.
Definitely, man. Trust me, time flies by. I'm 100 plus episodes in. Time flies by.
It does.
Like when you first start and you had like single digits or like double digits, it's like, good grief. Like,
well, one of the things I've read was like the average podcast lasts 7 episodes. So I'm 20 deep right now. So I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, dude, you're past the hump. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're past the hump. You're past the hump. After one, trust me, once you're already past that, it's just a workout now. You just working out. You just building muscle at this point.
I love it. Guys, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with that being said, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. Guys, make sure that you check out Audio Airstrike. We also have our YouTube page because we also do the video version of this podcast as well. You can check us out there for the full length version of the episode through video. And then also you can also check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever you can find us on multiple podcast platforms. until next time, everybody, make sure that you guys be safe out there. There's still a pandemic going on. For those of you who want to have fun on the holiday for July 4th, you are more than welcome to do so. It's your right. Just make sure you're doing it safely. Make sure you ain't spreading nothing.
Well,
all right. So with that,
hold on. Actually, it's my birthday weekend. My birthday's July the 5th.
Dude, happy birthday!
Oh, happy birthday, man!
Yeah. So I'm gonna have a good old time this weekend.
Oh, I bet you are. I was waiting for him to ask me, well, okay, hey, my Cash App is this. Can you put something in? I was waiting for you to ask.
No.
I was just waiting for it. As I say, you gonna ask to put a Cash App.
If you want to send me something on Cash App, I do have Cash App now.
See, I'm good with the transition. See, shameless plug. Shameless
I
plug.
love it.
So make sure
everybody say happy birthday to Will this weekend. There we go.
Support his podcast, and then he'll give you the Cash App if you ask.
Yeah. Awesome.
So with that being said, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. Until next time, everybody, y'all take care.